so much for doing this. Super excited.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked.
Awesome. I was just listening to your cover of Memories. It's like I mean, dude, you could hit those notes like perfectly.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. Actually, I really liked your Blinding Lights cover too.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, the version of you that you did it. I think I'm not a huge fan of the original, and I heard that one. I was like, wow, like that song, like really. I don't know. I thought it was amazing, so I just want to let you know
I
that.
appreciate it, man. Thanks so
Yeah,
much.
yeah, for sure. And your original stuff too, which we'll get into. But this podcast is all about you, man, and your journey in music, how you got to where you are now. I know you came from a musical household, obviously, but your songs don't sound anything like the stuff that your dad was putting out at the time. So I'm curious to see how you
It's
got into music.
yeah, I mean it's we're different people, so that kind of makes sense. It's
Sure, yeah.
you know, it's
Go ahead.
it's no, it's one of those things that's funny. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you must have been playing music since like you walked out of the womb. It's like, nah, I got into it like I was probably 10 or 11. And my best friend played guitar and I went over to his place and he could play Smells Like Teen Spirit, which like I wasn't into Nirvana like at all then, but I knew the song and the fact that he could play it was like, what the fuck? Like I have
Sure.
to be able to do that. So that's really what got me into it, is seeing my friend Justin play. It was like that just blew my mind. I went home and was like, Dad, you have to teach me guitar. And I'd said that a couple times before, and it's like, he'd show me a chord and I'd forget and like whatever. But I was like, no, like you have to show me, you have to show me. So he showed me like three chords and I played them all night. Like I remembered in the morning and I woke him up. It must have been like 6 in the morning because it was before elementary. So I'm like, you have to show me another chord. And it was like, I can only imagine like your kid standing over you, waking up that early, being like, show me now. It's like, oh, but he did. And
But he was probably stoked, I mean, that's what he does.
yeah,
So he was
no,
probably like, "Oh my God, like how
he,
awesome my kid wants to learn how to play guitar."
yeah, like he was like, he showed me that. And then like, the next 2 days he showed me a couple more. And then he was like, all right, like if you're serious about this, like I'll get you a guitar and like you should do it. So that's just what happened. But like he never pushed me towards music. Neither of my parents really ever pushed me towards anything. Like I was thank God I found it. I was horrible at sports. So like, I was like in junior soccer and all that stuff when I was like 5, 6, 7. And like I didn't get the rules. I didn't get it. And I'm like, it's like, oh, and then I found music. It's like, okay, it's all
That,
good.
that's amazing. It's interesting because I interviewed Sophie Simmons, and I don't know if you guys ran around
Oh yeah.
together as kids, but she
Oh
said the
yeah.
same thing. Like, yeah, because I was like, you must have gotten into music from your dad, and she goes, well, no, actually, like I didn't get into music until
Yeah,
later, and her stuff is like, electronic on the total other spectrum of what both your parents are doing.
totally.
So I just found that fascinating. And your story is very similar. I mean, were you born in New York or LA, or tell me about, your
LA.
early or LA? Talk to me a little bit
Yeah, I
about
was born
that.
in LA. And yeah, I mean, it was I grew up out here and I grew up thinking I hated LA because when you're a kid, like I love LA now and LA's amazing, but like you're very trapped if you can't drive because it's like, so LA then was like
It's so spread
my
out.
house, my friends. Yeah, it's like it was like school, my parents' house, my friend's parents' house. So like the second I turned 18, I'm like, I'm moving to New York. And I left and I loved it there, but like it definitely ran its course and LA's the spot. Like it's funny, I never appreciated it growing up. And even even with music, like there wasn't, and also because of the time, like with everything being on the internet, it was like I hit like that weird time where it was like a year or two before like SoundCloud and all that stuff. I'm talking like high school
Okay.
was like before that was like a whole culture, but live music also wasn't a whole thing either. So it was like that kind of caught between like live music was going down and
Mhm.
internet stuff was going up, but it wasn't where it was. So it was like, and especially without a car, I could drive like at the end of high school, but before that, like it was a weird music scene where it's like, okay, you can't really go to shows
Sure.
and you can't like, so it was like a lot of playing guitar in my bedroom. And then I moved to New York and it was great.
Yeah, it's
Then it's like you
interesting.
walk everywhere, you get to shows every night. And
Right. Because I mean, I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in San Diego. So we would take a lot of trips up to LA because you
Oh,
guys
okay, yeah.
had better venues. But when it came to like smaller clubs, a lot of them, like Troubadour, wasn't that kind of, isn't, I don't know if all the shows are 21 up, but a lot of the shows, there was like age limits on it. And like, there wasn't a whole lot
Yeah,
of
so
all ages shows in LA, at least when I was growing up in San Diego.
no, definitely not. And like that was I was like definitely a young looking 15, 16 too. So it was like no fake ID was gonna get me in anywhere. I looked like I was 13. Like so I was really just shit out of luck. And like, yeah, the Troubadour's 21 plus, and like the whiskey and the Roxy would have like you get your hand stamped and go in, but like just not the best vibe,
Right.
especially like I get like, and I love like the 60s music scene here and like the Laurel Canyon scene and what was
Mhm.
happening at the Whiskey then. And I would kill to go back and see it, but like, I don't need to see the Whiskey now. I've done it and like I'll, and that's not a knock at all. Like I've had some really fun times there, but it's like, it's not, it's not like a place I would go to discover music. And like at that
Right.
point when I was in high school, like I hadn't discovered like the whole like, oh, there's a lot of cool shit on the east side. And
Mhm.
like, like that was just starting to happen when I was in high school. So it was like by the time I was coming back from New York, like by the time I was like 22 or so, I'd come back on trips and like then I'd start to see like, oh, there's like actually really cool stuff happening. And
Mhm.
like there's a lot more to LA than I thought. And like maybe I was just more aware, maybe more was happening, whatever, but the music scene got really cool. And like that's when I started missing a lot of opportunities by living in New York. Like I'd be out here and someone would be like, come to my show, come to this session, let's do this. And it's like, shit, I leave in like 3 days. So I finally was just like, all right, I'm moving back.
Okay. So through high school, did you ever play in a band, or was it always you talked a lot about playing just in your room, so to speak, but were you jamming with friends? Like, did you guys try to
Yeah,
play different various venues in LA?
yeah, we did. Like I played in a lot of like because then I didn't sing or write or anything. I was just playing guitar. So like I played in a lot of different like what's that downstairs place by Astro Burger? That was like one of the few all ages places.
Oh,
So we played there
my
a lot. Like
brother-in-law played there like 2, 3 years ago. I forgot what that place is called. I
shit,
know
yeah,
exactly.
what?
Is it like it's not the Echo Flex. It's something, I think it starts with an E. I don't remember. I know exactly. You walk down into it.
Yeah,
Like
yep.
it's
And
like
now
right
I'm trying
next
for
to,
the life of
yeah,
me.
it's right by Paramount Pictures and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like the sketchiest little thing. It's like a door in an alley
Yes.
behind Astro Burger, and you walk downstairs and like I remember playing there a bunch. Like we played all the Sunset Strip places because like they were all ages. We played friends' houses and stuff. Like just a bunch of like there wasn't any one like band I was in, but there were tons of different like there was a drummer Jackson I played with a ton and a bass player Skylar and like we would play with different singers like we did for hire gigs and then we did we'd choose a name and that month we would be that and
Sure.
play a couple shows and like but nothing ever like this is it kind of thing but like
Mhm.
a ton of playing like that was
Right.
definitely good and that was super fun and like I think a really good foundation especially for what I do now. um I think that's something that I can bring, especially to production and to the kind of music I'm making now. Is like my background isn't in um, production first; it's in live music and
Mhm.
playing guitar, playing live. So I think the way you approach things is a little different. I think getting kind of both, um, sometimes leads to some interesting stuff.
Sure, sure, sure. When did you start writing songs? Like, was it pretty quickly after, learning guitar, or was it like covers? You talked about "Smells Like Teen Spirit." Like, did you start focusing more on
Yeah,
covers or start writing your own music?
when I first started playing, I just want to play like Green Day songs. Like I just want to play every Green Day song I
Yeah, that's my
possibly
favorite
could.
band of all time. So I'm gonna love that
Oh,
you
dude,
said
they're
that.
the best. Like American Idiots, like that got me. That was one of the first records. It was around the same time, but like that record for sure first was the first record totally separate from my parents. Like I love the Beatles and I was always a Beatles freak, but like
Mhm.
my parents loved the Beatles. So like,
Sure.
there was no but that album, that Green Day album was like that was the first album I absolutely fucked with the most that had nothing to do with my parents. And like that got me going. And then And then Songs About Jane, the first Maroon 5 record, like the band one, when they
Oh,
were
right. Yeah.
like, those two albums were the like, that was the first time I had like my own musical taste, like totally separate. And I love them. So I was just trying to play everything I could that was Green Day, and like every guitar solo on there, every lick, every riff. It's like, and then, you know, as I think it was like that for a while. Then I got into Zeppelin. It's like, okay, every Zeppelin solo I can learn. I got super, excuse me,
No
into
worries.
like British. I so I stopped drinking. I'm like, I love coffee so much, and I drink a lot of coffee.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yesterday, my doctor's like, you can no longer have any caffeine.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
so I'm currently coming off that, and it's really like, it sucks. Like
Yeah, oh,
I thought it'd be like, that's fine. Like I'll just like not have coffee, whatever. Like I can do anything. Like, no, it sucks. So
yeah.
sorry if I yawn a couple times. It's because I've not had a cup of coffee in like 22 hours now, and
Oh, dude,
I'm feeling it.
don't worry about it. I'm just worried about you having a headache. I mean, those are the worst,
No,
like caffeine headaches.
yeah, I'm like, we'll see this afternoon.
You're not there yet.
I'm not keeping my hopes up. Yeah. But
Stay ahead of it with some like
so
Tylenol or something.
yeah, exactly. And a nap.
Yeah, sure.
No, but I just wanted to play everything I loved. Like I got super into British blues, and like, you know, that's where, because I started as a guitar player too, my tastes kind of felt like, you know, if you're super passionate about guitar, like, and thank God I fell in love with Green Day first, because it really informs what I do now. Like Green
Mhm.
Day was a pop band. Like
Yeah.
they were amazing, and like they played and looked punk, but they were pop for sure. Like they wrote hooks, and that's what I love about them. Like to me, it always goes back to the song. Like that's always the most, you know, no matter how crazy face melting the playing is, like if there isn't a song, I just can't be along for the ride for that long.
Mhm.
It's just
Mhm.
not, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not my vibe. Like where it's like, you know, like 30-minute jam, unless you're Zeppelin. And even with Zeppelin, it's not the kind of thing I can do like every single day, but like 30-minute jams are just like, I don't know. I want the chorus over and
Right.
over. And
Oh
like,
yeah. I totally agree. And
but
go ahead.
no, sorry.
I was
No,
just gonna
go.
say that like Green, because I'm a huge Green Day fan. Like the first record I ever owned was Dookie because I'm a bit older than you.
Oh, it's the
But
best.
like with Green Day, you can break down every one of their songs and play it on an acoustic guitar and sing the hooks, and it
And
would
they're
sound
great.
like, yeah, they're all amazing songs. Like there's
Oh,
no
so well, he's an
uh,
Everly Brothers freak. It's like, I
yeah.
love my Max, one of my buddies who I work with a lot. Like we were at the studio, we were playing Green Day, and then he was like, it's crazy. He's just like, it's Everly Brothers with distortion. And like, he's like, wait a second, it totally is. Like he's so about that. Like, um, sorry, my door gets pushed to my phone. So
Oh, dude.
my phone and laptop start ringing like crazy if someone
I couldn't
buzzes
hear
my door.
anything,
Um,
dude. It's all good. This is why I
yeah, he's
love
like,
this day and age we're in. I mean, unfortunately, it sucks because nobody can go outside, but the little
yeah.
behind the curtain things are just, it just intrigues me and I love it.
Oh yeah, there's no illusion when it's like, no matter how deep in it you get, your girlfriend buzzes the door to let you get in. It's like, oh, I guess everything's gonna ring, and it's gonna be,
Sure.
you know.
I love it though.
No, me too. But yeah, like I love Green Day because the foundation is just an amazing songs, and like the attitude comes from how it's done. Not it's the attitude isn't like, I'm so bad, but I'm confident. Look at me. It's like, I'm really fucking good, but I'm gonna play it with attitude.
Right.
Like, and I love that so much. Like, he's just one of the best writers.
Oh, he
Um,
hands down, yeah. And there's a reason why his
yeah.
band just became what it was. I mean, obviously they worked and worked and toured and toured and toured
Oh yeah.
super when he dropped out of high school to do it. But I mean, the
Mhm.
songwriting has always been there, even from the first, 1039 Smooth Out Slappy Hours, that record, even like
Oh
all
yeah.
those songs like Paper Lanterns.
I
It's
love
like,
Why Do You Want Him?
oh my gosh, yeah, what a great song. And he wrote, did you know he wrote that when he
Oh
was
yeah.
13 or 14 years old? That was like the first song he ever wrote.
Jeez.
He
I
wrote
didn't
it
realize
like
he, I
about his
knew I knew it was. I
sister.
didn't realize he was that young. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
he wrote it about his sister's boyfriend that used to call the house all the time, and he would like get annoyed by it. So he wrote that song about it when he was like
Dude,
13
that's
years old.
awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's so cool. Also, like that's yeah, like for me, what to answer your earlier question, I don't think I did. I didn't start writing till I was probably, I think I wrote my first song when I was like 16 or 17. I
Okay.
wrote one song because I always wanted to write, and again because like my biggest heroes early on were like Paul McCartney and Billy Joe Armstrong, and
Sure.
like they weren't my heroes. And I think McCartney is like a stupid bass player. He's unbelievable. It's just like if you
Yeah.
listen to those bass lines, like that's a song by itself. But
Mhm.
like, you know, when you're 10, like it's not the bass line I'm falling in love with, it's the song, it's the voice. And same with Green Day. It's like I love the guitar, but what you know, what got me about those records weren't just the riffs, it was the song. So like first and foremost, like I think there was always that bit that wanted to write.
Mhm.
Um, but I was kind of too scared to try it. And I didn't sing also. So it's like, well, shit, like it's gonna be awkward. Like, how do you explain to someone how to sing a song? Like if you don't sing at all, like
Mhm.
not like I kind of sing. It's like I really didn't sing at all. It's like, what am I gonna do? Like write it and then be like, okay, I'm gonna play the melody on the guitar for the singer and be like, emphasize this. Like, I don't know. That's just like that's an
Yeah,
awkward thought. So like
yeah.
I just never thought of, was like shit. So like, yeah, when I was like 16 or 17, I like wrote my first song and like sang enough to, you know, iPhone note it. And then I was like, I think everyone goes through this. Like the first few songs you write, you're like, fuck, like I'm never gonna be able to top it. Like I have nothing else what else am I gonna say?
Yeah.
Like I can't do better than that. Like, oh
Right.
no. So I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I don't know how to write another song. Shit. So then I didn't write anything. I didn't even try for like a year.
Oh,
And then
wow.
my very last year of high school, I wrote one more song. Um, and then yeah, I guess when I got to college, I started writing. Like, I got like serious about writing. I was like, okay, like I'm gonna write songs. Like, I want to write songs. I know I can write songs. I just have to figure this out. But like,
Mhm.
if I don't actively choose to like sing and write songs, like it got to a point where I'm like, I have to choose. Like, I'm gonna sing and I'm gonna write, and I'm gonna just like, you know, shred that until it's good. I was like
Mhm.
19.
Okay. Did
Um,
you ever show those early songs to
and like
anybody, or were they just kind of there in your iPhone notes, iPhone messages, you said?
I showed a couple friends.
Okay.
I showed my buddy Jackson, the drummer I played with, because he was starting to write stuff too. Like we would always be like, let's write. And then we'd end up hanging and just like playing acoustic guitar and drinking coffee, being like, we should write. And then we never actually did. Um, and I remember once my dad heard me playing one, he came in, because like, especially at that point, I was listening to like a ton of like folk stuff and a ton of like Laurel Canyon stuff and all that.
Mhm.
And he came in, he was like, oh, what were you listening to? It's actually really cool. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, like, well, what was just playing when I was walking up? Like, it was cool. And I was like, oh, that was something I wrote. And he was like, what?
Wow.
And like, he had never heard me sing or anything. And like, cause I didn't even think of myself as singing then. So like, that was definitely like, all right. Like, and he's like, play it again. I was like, fuck no, please no. Like, I'm like, I don't have to play. He's like, no, just come on, just play it again. It's like, I like wouldn't look at him like, here's the song. And he's like, that's
Yeah.
actually really good. And like, he got me a mic. He's like, here, so you can like record ideas and stuff into your laptop. And um, so that was definitely cool. And that was like,
Oh, wow.
that and my buddy Jackson both like vibing with it were like the first times I was like, okay, like I don't know exactly how to do this on repeat, but I know I'll figure it out. Like I
Right.
need to figure out like I stumbled onto a song that was pretty good. I like in context of a first song. Like I'm
Mhm.
sure if I pulled it up now, I'd be like, what the fuck? But like
But it
it
validated you as a songwriter. I mean, especially for your
exactly.
dad
And
to
like,
walk in and be like, "What is this?" And he's wrote some of the biggest songs of all time.
yeah, so like that was definitely cool. And like it was definitely a good, like, okay, like I can do this. Like I'm not crazy. I just have to figure out how, but I can.
Right.
Um, but the path to get there was like, especially as a guitar player, like no matter how much you love the song, like, you know, if you play a certain instrument, you're probably gonna like binge that genre, like whatever's like, you know, you
Mhm.
don't have a lot of metal trombone players for a reason. It's like, you know, you kind of go with where the instrument fits.
Right.
And for me, like the gold mine of guitar playing, at least foundationally, is blues for sure.
Mhm.
Like if you want to
Sure.
be a great guitar player, to me, you've gotta at least get blues stuff. Like all my favorites, if not even like Brian May is one of my favorite players in the world, same as Mike Campbell from Tom Petty.
Uh-huh.
And like they're not like blues dudes, but they clearly are very informed by it and clearly like get it. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna be able to play this shit inside and out. And like I got super into it. And it was something like I'd heard, like everyone's like, oh, if you want to be great, like you got to play the blues. And like it had never quite clicked because like to me, blues was kind of like the slow down,
Right.
dun, 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 dun. And it's like,
Mhm.
and then I heard British blues. I heard like early Fleetwood Mac, like, you know,
Mhm.
like 20-year-old Peter Green and like, you know, the Beano album with Clapton when he was like, I think he was like 21 on it, and like Yardbirds. And
Yeah.
then I got led back to some of the American stuff that was like, oh my God, like Freddie King and Buddy Guy and like the American guys who like really put like in it. Like that's
Sure.
the kind of blues I love. Like anxious blues, not just the like very like, you know, like nervous blues. That's
Right.
And I was like, okay, like to me, and it's still my favorite players are like those guys. So like that was, you know, I spent like probably 3 years between like 14 and 17 just being like, I'm gonna get that good. Like
Mhm.
I'm gonna get to like where I want to be, like where I can play and dial in the sound and get the feel of all my heroes, which like was amazing because it was super, super fun. And I think it made me a really great player.
Mhm.
But it definitely was like not the pop playing. It's like almost the opposite. It's like, what's the
Sure.
opposite of pop? Blues. Like,
Right.
even though I think it, you know, everything's an evolution, and blues informed rock and roll, which informed rock, and then new wave, and then, you know,
Of course. Yeah.
it
Well, you
all
got
ended, it ended up, but you got 70 years between them. So it's like,
right, right, right.
you
It's not
know,
like it happened
you know,
over the
to
course of like 5 years.
No, so like then when I got really into writing, like it's an interesting thing where you're like, all right, I need to now take everything I've done for the last 3 or 4 years and, you know, like really pride myself at being good at. Cause like, you know, I was great, like at that point as a guitar player,
Right.
within that arena. Like if we're
Mhm.
talking like blues rock, like that kind of thing. Um, but then I kind of had this realization, like I got to this point when I was like 16, 17. I'm like, wait a second, like I love playing this stuff and I love listening to some of it, but like on the whole, the stuff that I really love is like all this Laurel Canyon singer-songwriter stuff and like
Mhm.
a lot of 80s pop stuff. And like it's all the stuff with like big choruses and songs, like hooky songs. And I'm like, you know, I realized like I hit this wall where it's like I didn't really want to be jamming for like 6 hours just shredding solos. I want to be playing an acoustic guitar and figuring out like, okay, why does this song work? Like,
Mhm.
why do I love this song and only like this one? Like what, you know what I mean?
No, I
Um,
totally understand. Sure.
so that was where I was like, okay, I have to figure this out. And that was like end of high school, where it was like, it's a weird thing to be like, all right, now I have to figure out how to forget a lot of like, because you know what might be really good in this genre is like that it's the opposite of what you want to do here. And it's like, you know, it's a weird thing to like, okay, now I have to whittle down like this is what I love about it, and this is what I'm going to keep from this, and what
Mhm.
makes me, you know, unique and can help shape my view. But then this other stuff around it, that's more baggage. Like, let's leave that here and try and so it was a weird like, you know, I ended up I've always loved pop stuff, and I ended up, you know, now that's very much where I'm at is like
Mhm.
doing the stuff that I want to make and the stuff that I love. But the way I got there was very roundabout, which on one hand, you know, I think gave me a lot of what can set me apart, whether it's vocally or arrangement wise, or just kind of how I approach stuff. But it was also, you know, a huge pain in the ass to be like,
Yeah.
okay, like,
But
you know,
it's easier to
anytime,
strip back stuff than I mean, at least you have the foundation. You know how to play, like you can rip all these solos, right? And then you have all of this stuff that you already know how to do. And like, I bet it's easier. Not, I don't. I mean, I don't know if it's easier, but at least you can just peel back, things and take it away from to kind of create the more simplistic
it,
pop than it is to like, okay, I want to try to write a pop song, but I really have no base of anything. So I'm going to just attempt it. You know what I mean? You like
it
had the spectrum of
but
everything.
like it's so weird because like a couple of the guys I work with now, and one in particular is like one he's like one of those total like just like savant Swedish writers who like he could like stub his toe and the melody that comes out is going to be just fucking gold. And it's like insane. Like he's like frustratingly good. And he's like the best dude in the world and amazingly talented. And, you know, I love working with him because also our overlap of kind of what we like and dislike is like, it's the perfect balance where we make some really cool and some weird stuff as a result. But like, it's an interesting thing where it's like, he comes from more of a DJ perspective. So his background was loving music and then seeing what music people responded to.
Sure.
Like I'm talking like live,
like club DJing.
Like, yeah, like club, like, okay, what gets people going? This makes them stay on the floor. This makes them leave. This makes them lose their shit. Like, so, and which is an amazing perspective because my perspective growing up was, okay, I'm alone in my room. What makes me vibe? What makes me happy? His perspective was, what makes these 400 people happy? So it's, I think, it's a slightly different approach. And I think his informs pop a little bit better, where it's like, you know, and that's something I'm learning to appreciate now. And it's like, I'm a terrible keyboard player. Like I'm really, really bad. And it's somewhat intentional. Like at this point, because I produce and I program a ton of stuff, like I have to be decent enough that I can put it in. But like, I never practice any piano stuff at all, or keyboard, whatever you want to call it. Cause like, I feel like that takes some, and I know this sounds like hokey or silly or whatever, but like, I think it takes some of the magic away. It's like, there's stuff that I would never dream of doing on guitar because like, I know the guitar well, I'm very familiar with the guitar. So I wouldn't dare to be that like, I'm going to play these two chords in the simplest voicing over and over. Like, I just wouldn't do that. It wouldn't be my thought. Cause it's like, there are too many years of practice and honing a specific skill where it's like, no, like I'm a guitar player. Like I wouldn't do that. It's like, dude, I can't play keys for shit. Like, of course I'll do that. It makes it so much easier. Like, where it's like, I think it's a little, I guess what I'm getting at is it's freeing to just, you know, be ignorant on that level, because then you're not thinking about like, is this good? It's like, no, I really vibe with it. Like I could sit here and hear these three chords over and over with this sound. There has to be a reason for that. So let's just go with it. Like, I think that's like a really, really good, you know, thing to hold on to and a good perspective to get. And that's like, I remember when we first started working together, like he was like, if you can't play it with one hand on a keyboard, it's probably too complicated. And it was like, oh shit. Because it also forces you like, and again, this is like, there's so much music that I absolutely love. That's like I love the Beach Boys so much. Pet Sounds is like mind boggling.
Oh, dude,
and like, that's just like
ever.
the opposite. It's like, oh, it's insane. It's like, hey, let's have 7 unique sections in a 2-minute, 39-second song. And somehow it's amazing. And somehow it works. Like the craziest part is not that they did it. The craziest part is that it's like, yeah, and we're still singing it 50 years later from memory. Like, that's nuts. Like, what? But then, you know, there's so many other of my favorite songs that it's like, if I sit down to play, I'm like, wait, this is C to F. The whole song is C to F, C to F. And maybe there's a break where they hang on F for like one extra bar. And like, that's the whole song. But what that does is like, that forces you to be really entertaining with the top line. And it's like, if the foundation is really solid and, you know, gratifying, but not complicated, and not really, I guess, interesting. It's like, then it forces you to make the song super interesting. Where it's like, okay, then there's no room for good enough or okay, you know, melody or lyrics wise. They just got to be awesome. And like, to me, that's interesting. Where like, I never realized how hard it is. You know, like I was one of those kids who's like, you know, a 16-year-old who's like, oh, if it's not a tube amp, like I don't want to play that. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's like, that's not real. You didn't record on tape. Like, that's not real music. It's like the worst attitude ever. It's like the most music snobby thing. Like, and that only comes from a place of like, of fear and not understanding. You know, I think like if you get into, and I don't know exactly where that came from me. Maybe it was just being a stupid 16-year-old being like, no, like it has to be real.
But like all those bands, I mean, like, those punk bands, like, you know, back to Green Day and like Rancid and all those bands played out of like those Marshall tubed heads in like a big, you know,
Totally.
cabinet. And now you see a band play with like an orange combo amp that's like this big, and then it's just mic'd and ran through a bunch of stuff.
But it's like, I think it's, and like, to me, it was like, well, if the Beatles didn't have this, I'm like, yeah, but the Beatles were using the absolute newest shit they could get their hands on to make stuff interesting. Like it's, I feel like it's about the spirit of pushing things forward, not so much, you know, being beholden to, well, they didn't have this mic back then. It's like, okay, but if they did, they would have used it. So use it.
Of course.
Like, you know, like there was a lot of that music snob, like when I was like younger, and I was like, I had to outgrow them. I was like, wait a second, like so much of my favorite stuff has synths all over it. Tons of my favorite stuff was tracked in Pro Tools and Logic because it came out in the last couple of years. Like, why am I hanging on to this? Like, what? Because my favorite guitar players didn't have it. So like, you know, I think that was a very freeing thing to be like, no, just like have fun and make cool stuff. And like, now it's like I get whatever guitar is closest to me and plug it directly into my computer, and like,
and use like the preset, because you can change the amps. I mean, you can do anything on a computer now. It's crazy.
Yep, I have so many like channel strips saved. So it's like if I'm thinking, okay, like I kind of want this sound, I'll just pull it up and immediately it's there. It's like, it's so nice. And like, to me, it's like, it shifted so much. You know, I guess I started, and I think it's helped for production a lot too. It's like, I started as a guitar player. So it was all about sounds. It's all about like, how do I make a guitar sound like this? How do I do this? How do I, you know, get, and because I didn't sing or write, it's like, how do I channel that emotion from one instrument? It's like, I can only do one thing. How do I do it? But now it's like, now I want the quickest path to the song. It's like the quickest way to get ideas in. But I think that background helped me dial stuff in quickly. So it's like from the idea being in my head to getting it out is a lot quicker because of it. And like, that's something I'm super grateful for. But yeah, the whole simplicity thing, like making 2 or 3 chords interesting for 3 minutes is like, that's a challenge. And I never realized, you know, when I was like a 16-year-old blues freak, I'm like, oh, pop, like, which was also funny because like most of my favorite stuff I was listening to was pop. It was just played with guitars, or it was from the 60s or the 80s or whatever. I was like, oh, pop, like, and then like I got to college, I moved to New York. I was like, wait, this is all the shit I love. Like, this is like, this is amazing. Like, what am I like? I need to figure this out. Like, why am I not doing this? But like getting something great and simple. And I think also because like, there's nothing worse than a bad pop song. Like, like a great pop song, amazing, but a bad, like when you tried to make a great pop song and ended up with a bad pop song, like there's nothing worse. But like, but like a bad blues song is still all right. Like if you're like, especially if you're a good band, like you can take a pretty bad song and make it pretty good. Like it's, so I think that's part of what is so interesting too, is like, there's not that much room for anything less than, which I love about pop stuff. It's like, if it's not great, you notice, like you definitely notice.
Yeah, it's like when you hear it,
hide behind.
Right. People will say like, oh, I like the biggest pop song, you know, and they're like, that's so simple. I could write a song like that. It's like, well, then why haven't you? Right. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
That's like the easiest, like most cliche lyrics ever. It's like, yeah, that's why it's such a good song, because they thought of like the most relatable thing possible and wrote an amazing hook and some lyrics that everyone can relate to.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I feel like there's not, sometimes people are like, oh, like they sold out and went mainstream. I'm like, yeah, but now they connect with millions of people. Like, isn't that a good thing? Like, it's like, the
goal?
You know, it's like they're making a good living doing what they love, and on a more giving level, I mean, a lot of people are taking something away, you know, positive and emotionally from that, where it's like, I would rather connect with 1 million people than 1,000 for sure.
Right. I mean, that's the thing that's funny is like when I haven't heard people say sell out in a long time. I don't know why, but like, I remember that was like Green Day sold out or so-and-so sold out. And it's like, okay, like, what do you want them to write the same record 100 times? Like they're just progressing in their like musical careers. And like you said, using newer stuff and pulling from different influences, and just because they're so amazing, they can keep climbing the ladder, how's it their fault?
It's like, don't be mad they wanted to try something new. Like, it's funny,
Right.
I haven't heard the term sellout in a long, thank God. Like, I think that's kind of gone away a bit, which I
Mhm.
love. Like with the whole internet thing, like there isn't selling out anymore. It's like as long as people vibe with what you're doing, you can kind of do anything. And like,
Mhm.
you know, the next song can be an almost different genre. And like it's okay as long as people vibe. And like I think that's amazing. It's so freeing. We're like now we're seeing like the weirdest collabs and
Oh
like
yeah.
just a lot of cool shit happen. And I think, you know, even when because I got into music right before internet music like exploded. So
Uh-huh.
like yeah, like I heard the term sell out a lot too, but now it's like, yeah, I want my song in a car commercial for sure. And like,
Sure, yeah,
you know,
of
it's
course you
like
do, yeah.
like I think all that stuff is looked at very differently now. And I think that's for the better. Like I think, you know, the internet definitely threw the music industry kind of on its head for a while.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of what came out of it was good. Like for sure, revenue structure is a little not the best, especially if you're a writer, and we need to
Right.
figure that one out. But like,
Mhm.
you know, we're in the process of figuring that out. In a lot of ways, it's like it gives a lot more people voices and a lot it's easier to like look like I happen to really love pop stuff. So like it's pretty easy for me to find stuff that I at least kind of vibe with. But like I have friends who have extremely obscure tastes and like really don't fuck with a lot of stuff, but the stuff they love, but
Mhm.
it's like very obscure where like, you know, way back when you'd have to dig through crates at the record store for hours and maybe find one thing. Now
Mhm.
it's like you can go on Spotify and with a few clicks, there's a playlist of stuff that's like made for you. Like
Sure.
that someone else like in whether it was Spotify or someone else in their bedroom, like in whatever country or state made, and you happen to find. I think it's really cool that like all of the kind of barriers are down now. It's like
Yeah.
you can make anything and you can hear anything, and there is an outlet out there somewhere for you.
I love that because I never thought of it that way, that, like, the selling out thing is kind of like I haven't heard it, and like until you brought it up, I was like, oh yeah, like selling out, because now people are like hoping that they like go viral, right? It's like I hope my
Yeah,
song gets some TikTok dance move to it that makes it a billion plays or whatever. Like that's what people are shooting for now, and it's not looked at as, oh, you sold out. It's like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Like your video did this or your song did this.
totally. Like I think it's so nice that now it's like, yeah, people want to be successful. And like, that's cool. It's like,
Right.
it's cool. Like, however your song gets out there, like, that's cool. And people are stoked on that. And
Right.
I'm happy about that.
I love that. Well, I want to talk about you and your music for a bit here for a second. So you said you went to New York. Did you go to New York for school, or did you just wanted to move there
Yeah.
and get a different vibe? Okay,
Well, both.
both.
Like, I wanted to move there and get a different vibe. And my parents were like, you have to go to college. I'm like, okay, I'm going to college in New York then. Like, it was like, you know, yeah, it was, I went there because I went to school, but I went to school because I wanted to go there.
Right,
Like,
right. That makes sense. Did you go for music,
yeah.
or is it something totally different?
Yeah, I went for it was called recorded music, so it was kind of like a bit of everything. It was like a little bit of production, a little engineering, a little songwriting, a little business. It was very like make your own, you know, major of it
Sure.
kind of thing, where it's like it was kind of like a little bit of an intro, but like thankfully, like it wasn't like the classic music school of like
Mhm.
classroom knowledge. It was like everyone almost was adjunct and they're like, you know, because they were still doing a bunch of stuff and they're like very active producers, writers, and like um, you know, music business people who were like everyone was there because they wanted to be. So it
Mhm.
was like the vibe was great because it was all people who were teaching because they wanted to teach, and most of them were only teaching maybe one class
Mhm.
because they were still doing their full time thing and they just wanted to be involved with that. So like that was really cool and um, definitely a good experience. But the best thing about it was just being away, like being in New York. I think like being yeah, but like I think it's like important. Like you gotta. I love my parents. I'm super close to my family, but like especially when you're doing something creative, like you need that time to like go do you away from all your other stuff, especially
No.
like high
Yeah.
school stuff and that. Like I know a lot of people who stayed here and like like I know they stayed here.
Yeah, right.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right. Like you definitely
it was,
learn something from leaving where you're from. And I didn't really understand that either. I've come from radio and I've done radio for a long time, up until recently. But like I remember I had a boss, a program director that was like telling people that were like trying to become full-time DJs. They're like, yeah, that you're a great DJ here in San Diego, but you're not a great DJ. Like you need to move. Like basically he was saying like you need to move elsewhere, gain other kind of knowledge, and then you can come back here maybe and be a great. But it's similar to what you're saying, like you leave to kind of absorb a different,
totally. And
environment.
like, and I don't think it's so much like, it's not like, oh, like you grew up in a tiny town, you need to get like, out
Right,
or anything. It's
of
like,
course.
I think it's the same as like living in LA. Like LA is huge, but like just getting that different perspective, like having
Perspective.
time, even if it's 6 months, like just having a little bit of time where you live somewhere that's like nothing like where you grew up, I think is really, you definitely get something out of that. And like, so I loved it. I mean, I spent most of my time like
Coffee
just
time.
playing guitar and doing the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. Oh, I'm like,
Yeah.
I was thinking like, oh, the thought ran through my head. I'm like, yeah, I'll go downstairs after this, make some coffee. I'm like, no, I won't. Like,
It's interesting. Well, it's cool that you chose New York. I'm not sure if you're a fan of Andrew McMahon or his like something corporate
oh
or
yeah,
yeah, or he had Jack's Mannequin. But
yeah, I like Jack's Mannequin.
his second record, his second solo album. He was born and raised, or he was raised, I should say, in San Clemente area. And he moved to New
Okay.
York just to write the record. Like he moved there and like lived in a apartment there and just to soak because
Hmm.
you just to soak up a different environment. And then he wrote this amazing
Totally.
record. But like it just kind of reminded me of you. Like I'm gonna move to gain a different perspective. I love that. And then you're back in LA now. And what like were you releasing music, or you didn't start releasing music until this past year?
No, I wasn't releasing anything. Like I played in a band for a while there. I played like still when I first got out there, the first couple years, I was just like playing guitar for different people. Like
Mhm.
really still that was like I think also it was a really good like buffer period because like it was one of those things where I was still trying to kind of sort my shit out, like in terms of like I knew I wanted to sing, I knew I wanted to write, but like I said, I was like late to that game. So I was like,
Mhm.
I have to get into this. So the first couple years was like a lot of really just taking stuff in, taking in the city and like
Mhm.
really living like, you know, and yeah, really just kind of putting down
Absorbing
roots
it.
a bit and playing
Yeah.
a lot, but not, yeah, but not, not, I think I probably wrote a couple songs then. And then when I was like 19, I moved to Nashville.
Okay,
Um,
that's where I'm at. I just
for
moved
like,
here from Southern California or from San Diego.
oh,
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
That's why there's like nothing in
Okay. So
this
you're in
room.
Nashville now.
Yeah, we like literally
Dude, I
moved here a
love
month and a half
Nashville.
ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Where
Yeah.
at?
Just south of we're in the south like suburb by like Franklin.
Okay. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I lived.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So
I
we're down
lived,
here.
I lived, yeah, I lived like right, between Franklin and Nashville. I was like 10 minutes from downtown though, which was
Oh, cool.
amazing. And
Nice.
like,
Nice.
but
Like
I loved
Brentwood
it. And like
area or
that was
something
that
like
was
up.
great too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like,
It
yeah.
was like
Okay.
right in Brentwood.
Cool. Cool.
Um, but that was amazing because like every night I was jumping up with people, playing in rooms with writing, and like that was such a good experience. So like it was so much like that trying different stuff and like playing with different bands, playing with different people. And then I played in a band my last couple of years in New York, and then it was like it was so much fun. I loved it. I loved the guys in it, but it's a weird experience to be on stage and like I wrote all the stuff
Mhm.
and being like, why am I not having fun? Like what's going on? Like I'm on stage, we're starting to get more people coming out. Like we were just starting to consistently draw and like get some good opening slots. And it's like, yeah, but it's just not fun. It's like, oh, like I'm not making the kind of music I really want to make. Like, that it was like you said, like it sounds totally different than my dad. It's like what I was doing then. I mean, it didn't sound like Kiss by any means, but it was much more that format, so,
Mhm.
two guitars, bass, drums, and it was super fun, but it was like, because I think I grew up in such a rock sphere. It's like, okay, when it's time to play music, it's like I'll find another guitar player, bass, drums, we'll get a band together and we'll go.
Right. That's what you,
Um,
yeah, knew.
which which is awesome. And there's like that's great. Like there's nothing bad about that. Like I love playing. But it was an interesting thing to like kind of reflect and be like, all right, what's going on where I'm not vibing with my own stuff? And it's like, well, the first thing is like, I'd be in the van on tour and like, I would thumb through what I'm listening to is like, okay, just on like a very obvious level and visual level, like none of these bands live look like us live, in the sense of like, all of them have dudes running tracks or keyboard players or everything, because there's a lot more to it and there's a lot more going on than just 3 live instruments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, all right, I want to start. I'm like, that was definitely part of it. Was like, I want to start incorporating much more sonically into what I do. I wanted to be a lot more free, where it's like, I want to write something that maybe it doesn't work on guitar, but it's still a great song. It just doesn't sound quite right when it's just guitar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things where I just got to a point where it's like, I got off to, I'm like, I'm going to stay back in LA. I was still living in New York. I'm like, I'm going to stay here a couple of weeks and just write the best stuff I can. Like, I want to write exactly what I want to write and the best songs I can. And like, not worry also, because then it was always about a little bit like the DJ perspective I was talking about. I was like, I was always writing to fill a hole in the set. So it was like, you know, we weren't really shooting for slow songs, because if it's Saturday at like 1 a.m. on the Lower East Side, nobody wants to hear a slow song. Like,
Right. They
so,
want to, yeah, they want
you
to
know, it's like,
jump around.
yeah. So it was like, I was always writing to try and fill in holes and fill in where it's like, okay, well, people really react to this song. Let's write another like that. So this was like, no, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm not going to worry about the set. I'm not going to worry about how the other guys in the band will like it. I'm just going to write what I think is the best thing I can write. And then I called a friend who's a producer, and she was like, yeah, these are really cool. Like, let's do something. Like, so we just, you know, kind of threw some tracks together and kind of just demoed them out, because I wanted to show the band how I heard them, not just like, you know, a lot of times I'd bring in a song, but I'd play it for them on the guitar and then we'd kind of flesh out an arrangement. But it was like, no, like these are important. Like, I need to show them how I hear them, because it was not how we played them. So my friend Leah and I just, you know, made these tracks, and like I brought them in and they did not vibe with them. And which I get, like, it's,
yeah,
no, but I get it, because it was like, you know, it wasn't what they signed up for. It was a totally different thing. And I also get that it's different too when you've been in a band and, you know, you're playing together, and yeah, I wrote all the stuff, but like we would arrange it together and kind of everyone would put like a little bit of their own sauce on it. And this was like, here's the song, it's done. This is the bass part. This is what the drums are doing. This is done. Like, this is an arrangement. This is every part. So like, I get it. I totally get it. But like, also from my perspective, like there's no other way to do it. Like, I had an idea, like I needed to get it across. So like, that was when it was like, all right, like we got to go kind of our separate ways, and they're playing out there and like, I'm out here now. I'm right after that, I moved back to LA, and I knew this guy, Andreas Carlson, who's like an amazing writer. And I kind of sent him a few songs here and there. He's like, yeah, like, he was one of the first guys too, to like, I sent him a song when I was like 20 or 21. That was like the first time I was like, I'm going to like write, I'm going to like really write. Like, I'm going to focus on writing. And he was like, this is actually really good. Like, you should really keep writing. And then I sent him another, and he would like break down songs he had written I loved, and was like, this is how I approached the lyrics. This is what we did for the music. Like, he was really cool about that. And that was one of those like, okay, like if he's saying I can write, I got to chase this. Like, I got to put the work in and just do it. So I talked to him, and he was like, yeah, if you're not happy, like come to LA, we'll do stuff. So that's what I did. You know, that's when I was like going back and forth a lot. So I had lunch with him, and he's like, if you're not vibing with the band, dude, like you got to do you, like come out here, we'll write, we'll figure something out. And that's exactly what I did. I went back to New York, I packed my shit, and I came here. Like, and he introduced me to a few people that like I work with all the time now. And just like, I really jumped into it. And the first year was basically just like a crash course in like great pop from them. You know, it was like, okay, let's take everything that I'm good at and now let's make it accessible, let's say. And it's like, that was such a lesson too in, you know, introducing other perspective when you're working, where it's like I make music for me because I love it, for sure. Like, I love it more than anything. But what I love about music is the way it connects with people. And like, you can't forget that when you're writing. It's like, you got to remember like, okay, I love this line, or I love this chord change, but like, is this going to connect with people, or do I love it because I'm a musician who does this stuff 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day. And I've heard so much shit that like, this is kind of weird. I haven't heard it, so it connects with me. It's like, yeah, but I haven't heard it because it's not as effective. It's not as good. Like, so I think it's always a good check to like, I like to go in my car and listen to stuff because like that's the one place where I listen purely as a listener. Like I'm
Sure.
definitely not playing guitar or trying to like dissect tracks while I'm driving, you know? So like when I have music
Yeah.
on in the car, it's just like, do I vibe with this like on my gut level? Like,
Uh-huh.
so I think that's a really like that's how I test everything. It's like I'll pull a song up and I put it in a playlist of a bunch of my favorite shit. And then I just drive around. And when it comes on, if it's not as impactful or as exciting as the other stuff, and I go back to the drawing board.
That's a brilliant way to play it and kind of test your own music. I mean, I love that idea.
Yeah, I feel like well, it's just so helpful because like it's also super frustrating when like you make something like this is so rad, it's amazing, and then like the next morning, like I'm driving back to the city or something, I'm like, let's see how it holds up. And you're like, it does not hold up. Like no one is gonna like this.
Yeah, sure.
But
Well,
better to know before you try and show everybody.
right. Well, I love the song that you put out recently. Well, last February, I guess. These months keep going so quickly because of
Dude, I
everyone's
know.
inside. So you put out El Camino. That's the most recent song you've released.
Yeah.
I love that song. And are you
Thanks,
putting
man.
together like uh, an EP? I mean, obviously you're putting stuff
Yeah.
out
So
under your name now. Like, tell me what you have
yeah.
coming
So
up.
yeah, right now, I mean, it's COVID kind of threw a wrench in everything,
Sure. Were you in
unfortunately. But
LA when that happened, or were you still
yeah,
bouncing back and forth? Okay.
no, I was in LA. So I've been in LA the last couple of years now, and I was here for it, and it's just like it's a wild one. But like,
Yeah.
started releasing stuff this year, and it feels so good to like finally start to get a little bit normal again. Like I just got fully vaxxed like this last week, where it's like, okay, it's starting to feel, and like the vibe in LA for a minute was horrible. Like there was a period where it was just like a dark vibe. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
did not want to really go out and drive around because it was just sad. But
It
like
was sad
now
and
it's changing. Like
scary. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, but now it's definitely changed a lot. Like it feels good again. So like now I have so much stuff I want to get out there, and it's like right now just putting the last touches on a bunch of mixes, filming videos, it's kind of like
Rad.
getting really everything together because there's a lot of stuff in the pipeline. And especially over quarantine this last year, all I've done is be locked in and working on stuff. So it's, and now it's kind of when it's going through the final check too of like, all right, before I put this out, like, does this hold up? Because like, yes, I thought it was amazing when I was alone in September and the world was shut down and there was no
Right.
context. But like, so it's definitely interesting to see like certain songs that I didn't think much of, let's say maybe then, are actually really fucking good.
Mhm.
And then a couple that were like, no, this is the shit. I'm like, definitely not the shit, just shit. Like, it's
Yeah,
like,
kind of swapped there a little bit.
yeah, but like, because like it's also weird for me. Like, I think maybe not, but for me being creative, like I was gonna say anyone creative, but that's definitely not true. I know some amazing creatives who like literally just sit in their rooms and like spur out the craziest shit. And it's like, I wish I could do that. But for me, like I gotta take stuff in. Like I really have to take stuff in order to make stuff. And it was kind of a year of not taking stuff in or taking the same stuff in on repeat.
Mhm.
So that was definitely something to figure out how to get over and around. And that's where like I think it was a really interesting year because it was a process that I think I got some really amazing stuff out of. But also definitely wrote some really bad stuff. Like and now it's great to see kind of like light at the end of the tunnel. So now it's just going through everything, organizing the next few singles, and you know, with how much time I put into music, it's like I want to make sure the visuals and everything else are on the same level. So it's like, now just planning the videos for everything and getting it all together where I can blast out very quickly because, there's sometimes I have a tendency to, it's like I get so amped on the music. So I'm like, just get it out. Let's just do it. Just do it. Just do it. It's like, wait. Like I spent so much time on this. Like, let's at least give it, the content around it needs. So like
Right. Like the
that's what I'm
proper
doing right now.
release. Yeah. Well,
Exactly. So that's kind of it now, but there's so much more coming, and I got a call tomorrow to kind of figure out order of things, and it's just gonna be single after single after single, leading up to a couple different EPs. But it's exciting. Like I'm so happy to finally feel like okay, the world is like moving in a good direction, at least a little bit again.
I love that. Well, and again, man, I love the song, so I can't wait to hear the rest of the songs that you've been working on and your covers, man. Your
Can't wait
covers
to
are
show you.
cool, and I really want you to like. It'd be
Thank you.
so dope if you did like because I love, like I said, I'm not a big fan of The Weeknd, but the Blinding Lights cover is. I would listen to that one over the original, and so I want you.
Thank
It
you,
would be
dude.
rad if you did like an old like really punk Green Day song, like just because I know you could do it
Oh,
like
dude, that's
super dope. You know what I
it's so fun.
mean?
I've never thought of that. Like, I'm totally gonna do that. Now that you said that, like, it's weird.
Like
I
do
never
like
thought of that.
Burnout
Like,
by
yeah,
like the first song off Dookie, or like just something like so
yes.
like does like so left field. I think that would be so sick.
I did Welcome to Paradise. Like,
Oh, that'd be rad too.
just like acoustic. That'd be dope. I'm totally, yeah, I'm gonna do this. Let's say.
That's amazing. Well, dude, Evan, thank you so much for hanging out with me for a while. Like, I really appreciate it. I do have one more
Dude,
question
thanks
for
so much
you.
for having me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
of
want.
course.
Do you have any advice for aspiring artists?
Dude, I'm just trying to grind it out like everybody else right now. But I guess the best thing I can say is like, it was advice, my dad gave me, and a few other people along the way. Um, is like, you can't control how talented other people are. You can't control other people's luck or situations or anything else, but you can control how hard and how often you work. So like, I feel like, I actually, my mom told me a story. She knew about Stevie Ray Vaughan from Texas, where it was the same kind of thing of like, luck is just opportunity meeting preparation, where it's
Mhm.
like, so both my parents kind of drilled into me, like, just work and like work and keep yourself open to opportunities. And like, you don't know how it'll work out, you don't know when, but like, that's what you can do. So like, that's what you got to do, is just like work constantly. And then when that opportunity presents itself, run with it and you'll be ready for it. So it's like, just work.
I
And
love that.
that's like the one thing I was like when I first moved back to LA, I was working at this store in Silver Lake like 8 hours a day, then going to the studio for like 10 hours at night, which was like an hour away. So I'd come home, I'd sleep for like 3 hours and then go back to the store. And like, I was falling asleep. I can't believe like they liked me. So I was very lucky. They were chill. But like, dude, I fell asleep at the register, like in the front multiple
Oh,
times.
man.
Like, but like the motivation was always like I'm very grateful for the that store. A couple of my friends own it, and they were so sweet and so cool, and I'm super grateful uh because they put up with me. But like, dude, my motivation was I didn't want to work in a store. Like,
Right.
I didn't want to work in a store, and I figured, yeah, like afterwards I'd be like, I'm tired, maybe I'll take a night to rest. I'm like, nah, because that's 10 hours that I won't be working, and that's 10 more hours I'm gonna have to work another time before I don't have to work in the store. So like, it's I think that's the motivation for everything, is like just knowing that there's always someone behind you who wants to take your place, and you got to just work to make sure it doesn't happen. So that's really it. Like, find what you love and then work your ass off at it.
Bringing it backward.